Welcome back. We're talking about factoring. In this video 13 of lesson 3, we're going to talk about and introduce the standard form of a quadratic equation. Let's get started. The standard form of a quadratic equation is as follows. ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. We know that this is an equation because it has an equal sign. We've talked about that in a previous lesson. Every single time we see an equal sign in a mathematical statement, we're going to call that an equation. In the standard form of a quadratic equation, the right-hand side is 0. Now, since equal signs can be flipped around, of course, we could write the 0 on the left-hand side and bring this whole thing over to the other side. Doesn't really matter in terms of maintaining equality. One side of that equation is 0. I like to put it on the right-hand side just to get a sense of equilibrium. I wanted to talk about a portion of this equation, which is this expression on the left-hand side. This expression is quite special in mathematics. It's called the standard form of a quadratic expression. We could have seen that this was an expression and not an equation because in this expression, we do not see an equal sign. Notice that in both of these situations, the same quadratic expression arises. We have this ax squared plus bx plus c. Literally, the only difference between the standard form of a quadratic expression and its cousin, the standard form of a quadratic equation, is in the equation we drop on an equal sign. Which means, really, if we memorize this, my feeling is we actually get this one for free by just dropping on an equals 0. Kind of nice, right? Next thing I want to talk about is in this expression, each of these different values has a way to say it or a name associated with it. We've already talked about the idea in Spanish. We say, este es un cuadro. This is a square, cuadro, which is quadratic. We already talked about this x here. We saw that in linear terms, and then this is a constant. Let's go ahead and give names to each and every one of those variables. We'll start with the term that slaps us in the face first when we're reading this thing, ax squared. The a right there, that variable, we can read that out loud as the number in front of the x squared. If we want to get our nerdy math voice on, we could also say, this is the coefficient on the degree 2 term. Got to say it like that too. To rock out the nerd inside of you. This term right there, do you see that that term has a power of 2? Mathematicians would call that degree 2. There's more information about that, but it's beyond the scope of this class. When we see a number in front of a variable squared, we say that's a coefficient. So when a mathematician says, the coefficient on the degree 2 term, right after you stop laughing, realize what they mean is it's the scalar in front of the square. And that's yet another way to say that. The scalar in front of the square. Let's take a look at the next variable that slaps us in the face, which is the bx, the b term. In this case, we can say that the b is the number in front of x, because literally it's the thing right in front of x. That's another way to say that. Again, if we wanted to get our nerdy math voice on, we could say, well, the b is the coefficient on the degree 1 term. We'll see more about that later in life. This x right there has an unwritten 1 in the exponent. In particular, there's this very famous rule that says when I take x to the first power, that's just x, because I'm counting the number of times that x shows up as a factor with itself. In this case, there's only one factor, so it's just x. That's what we call the degree 1 term. That's b. The other way to say b is the scalar in front of x. Finally, the last thing that comes out and slaps us around a bit is that term c right there. We'll call that the constant term. And if we really liked making fun of ourselves when we speak like mathematicians, we could say, it's the coefficient on the degree 0 term. You got to speak like that too. Learn to wave your freak flag. Everyone's got them. It's just usually we don't take them out until we get to math class, right? The whole idea of a degree 0 term, we'll see this later, is there's a rule in exponents that says x to the 0 is actually equal to 1, which means that if I look at c, this is c times 1, which is c times x to the 0. Way too nerdy. I don't even care about that for this particular thing. If you ever hear a mathematician cuss at you like this, I want you to realize what they mean is It's the constant term with no variable, right? Another way to say that is it's the scalar with no variable. Part of this is I'm trying to just protect you in case you get mugged by a mathematician. You're not scared about what they're saying. Major idea here is the standard form of a quadratic equation. Cuadro means square. We've got an expression on the left-hand side. I like to say that the right-hand side is 0. This standard form, ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, will be the source of a lot of inspiration as we go to solve quadratic equations. In the next video, we'll see how that's done. See you there.